So we have here a fantastic lineup of speakers. You are, again, super lucky, and I'm very grateful I'm here as well, learning a lot from you. They're going to tell us everything behind the world of sports, how to make money in the sports world and how to do it well. As Peter said, you only go live once, you have to do it well. But I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, that you will do a better job than me. And I'm going to start. I think that's not a speak. Yes, you need still a microphone. I'm going to start with you, Maas. Everyone knows you in the region, but do you want to introduce yourself again for whoever doesn't know you, Maas?
Sure. My name is Maas Sheikh. I'm the CEO of STARZPLAY. STARZPLAY is now 10-year-old, going into our 10th year. And before STARZPLAY, I had the pleasure of working at OSN for 8 years. And before that, I started my career with Sprint as an engineer back in the early 90s.
Fantastic. Thank you, Maas. Next to you, we have Jorge. Jorge.
Nice to meet you all. Jorge de Nuez. I'm head director for technology and operations for Olympic Channel Services, company based in Madrid for the International Olympic Committee. Been engaged for the last 18 years, 70% of my time with the Olympics, both in Olympic Broadcasting Services first, and then the last 9 years working on the digital strategy of the IOC.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I think everyone got to meet me earlier, but Peter Gibson, head of product and marketing for Comcast Technology Solutions. And my focus and responsibility is across streaming, broadcast, and advertising.
Thank you. Dave?
Dave Mace, Principal Industry Specialist you've got. I work in our Media, Entertainment, Games and Sports division, or MEGS. We love an acronym. I was also at OSN. It's a pleasure to be back on stage here. And my sort of job is working in that sort of industry to look at problems on technology operations or whatever industry problem they have and kind of work backwards from that to try and solve that, whether it's with AWS or whether it's with our network of partners and stuff.
Fantastic. So I think I'm going to start with you, Maas. First, I want to say something. You don't want me to say, but I will say it. Maas was supposed to be in Los Angeles at LA screenings, buying content for his platform. When he knew we were here, he canceled everything to be with us, telling you all his secrets. He prioritized you, the LA screenings. Thank you, Maas.
Thank you. Thanks.
Also, I have been following you all these 10 years since you started in this journey. It's very difficult market. It's a difficult region. Huge players to compete with. You have the locals like Shahid. You have new players like Netflix. Still, you are there in the top 3. In fact, you are the top 2. Maas, how did you manage this? What is the secret of the success of STARZPLAY? How did you manage to be there?
Well, in everything, in every story like STARZPLAY, I think there's always a huge factor of luck. And we definitely benefited from that. I think early years, we were fortunate to have limited competition. Just like the previous panel, Michelle and Natasha were talking CPMs. 10 years ago, it was a similar discussion about SVOD. And the region was grossly underestimated on how SVOD will be adopted. And people were questioning whether the infrastructure is ready, whether behavior is there. And the reality is at that time, the behavior and infrastructure were ready. It's just the industry wasn't ready to give up on broadcast television. So the first 3 or 4 years, we benefited from that early mover advantage. And then Shahid got stronger, Netflix launched, so competition got stronger for us. And I think one thing that's kept us going is sandwiched between the world's biggest streaming platform on one hand, and then the other hand, with the biggest Arabic player. You know, we didn't need McKinsey to tell us you can't compete with Shahid on Arabic or compete with Netflix on Hollywood, right? So we had to figure out our own strategy. And that own strategy was to figure out where the white space is. We're not going to go compete with with Netflix head-to-head or Shahid head-to-head. So where we found the white space, whether it's sports that are underserved, like cricket, rugby, fight sports, mixed martial arts, or going into Hollywood content that was, especially with Netflix, focusing on its originals, created space for us to go into licensed Hollywood. So that's how we've been surviving and keep going.
Not only surviving, thriving and being on the top. So you mentioned sports. So for you, sports, it's really the king of the offer you have now. You have other type of content we'll discuss, but sports in particular, I think you meant cricket as well, because you have the rights for how many?
So we've secured rights for the Cricket World Cup, ICC tournaments, all ICC tournaments for next 4 years. And I say sports because what's in this region, we are fortunate, and that's also the challenge. The audience is very fragmented. And so you can go, if you are Netflix, you go for that one product and you have strong enough of a brand that you can cut across all segments, all types of audience. And Netflix can do that. We can't. So what we'd rather do is serve the complexity in the region and serve and take advantage of that fragmentation in audience. Now that each segment you build a product for becomes difficult to scale, becomes a little expensive in some ways, but you make that up in the fact that there's no one competing in that space.
This is great. And obviously the strategy worked. You have 3 million subscribers end of the year. Now it's 3.5, even more. So obviously it is working. And the revenues as well. The whole region is now more than 1 billion. But you mentioned cricket. And before I ask you for more sports, I'm looking now at Jorge, because the Olympics are starting on the 26th of July, and cricket is not there. Is it?
No, not yet. In 4 years from now,
So that
will be.
in 4 years, it will be in the next Olympic Games.
Yeah, it was already announced early this year or last year that the work of, with the push of the organizing committee of LA 2028, cricket and another 4 sports are going to be new to the Olympic program, and they're going to be part of Los Angeles 2028. And that's great news because spreading sport is the number one thing for the IOC, and obviously second is to bring value to whoever do the broadcast for that.
Fantastic. So again, another example of transforming, evolving, adding new sports. So how do you see, and I will ask you all this, consumers' behavior changing, especially in the world of sports? We associate, and I will ask you as well, Maas, we associate sports to premium because, it costs a fortune to acquire live rights of different sports. So we assume it has to be under a huge pay window. But what about the free side for sports?
Well, our example is one of them. Olympics.com right now, Olympic channel before 3 years from now. What we try to cover is the flame to flame. We are not present in the digital space to cannibalize our own product, which is selling rights for TV and media broadcast, right? And I think when you were talking before about where to find that audience, when we didn't exist, that audience was somewhere trying to look for sports results, sports signals, somehow what is your interest? And it's great to count on data, and like Maas was saying and Doris before, about that segmentation. What we have done and what I have seen as a trend with my product marketing content colleagues is that efforts on localizing the markets based on the segment or interest. Before, we didn't have any interest in India. Right now is our second traffic audience generator on the web and on the mobile app. And not only for summer games, but for winter games, which was a challenge. So I encourage the region to continue looking into where is growth, where are opportunities, because if you unlock, obviously you need to invest. Again, content, product marketing, and obviously technology supporting that, you will achieve it. is where the opportunities will come.
And this is great, and I have so many questions for you, but I like a sentence from the video, Peter, where you said, I was going to say, you only live once. No, you are only live once, meaning you only live once as well. But if it goes wrong, it's a disaster. Streaming is growing, it's good news. But if suddenly this cricket game is super popular, or the Olympics, whatever game, if Rafa is playing tennis, everyone wants to watch it. What if it collapses? What if latency is horrible? How?
Yeah, these are things we think about all the time. So, Maas talked about it. It's this proliferation of sports rights that we've seen in the marketplace. And Stars has done a great job of being an early adopter and having great sports content. But you're only live once, so it's a whole different ball game when it comes to traditional streaming VOD and your business. But now you're thinking about millions of concurrents for an event that you have to get right. So designing it to, we do events where we do 50,000 TPS per second, to look at really scaling the service for that particular, brand, that particular marketplace, to make sure that, it's designed and architected in a way where you're not going to have any interruption in service. So these are things that we think about all the time, in a platform that we underpin to enable these sports experience for our customers.
Did you have that experiences, Maas, when people were watching a game and suddenly it crashed because it became too popular and the network couldn't cope?
Yeah, absolutely. When you make this transition from SVOD on entertainment to sports and concurrent users, I think video and CDN obviously play a key role. And for us, Dave and AWS were very strong partners for us to help make that transition. That's the beauty of cloud services. You can make that transition. Unfortunately, what we discovered is for video and concurrent users, you can dial up the bandwidth and CDN and the compute as you need it, especially for a Pakistan-India match, right? But where you still hit the bottleneck is signups, because the credit cards are not ready for processing 3,000 transactions in 4 minutes. And unfortunately, that's still the behavior, whether it's AC Milan or Inter Milan or Pakistan versus India. Consumers wait till the last minute to sign up. So our issue wasn't handling concurrent users. Where we kept crashing is the credit card gateways weren't scalable. And so people are continuing to wait until their credit cards are authenticated before we let them in. Now, of course, the customer gets frustrated or they feel the service has crashed. So concurrency for us was an easier problem to solve. And to be fair, thanks to AWS. But it was really the front-end credit card processing gateways is where we run into problems.
Put a smile on his face. You mentioned.
I was thinking, I need to slide some money over.
There you go, AWS.
I mean, let's be honest. Everything fails at some point. And if you're not designing for resiliency or scale, then you need to take a hard look at yourself, really. But luckily, partners like Comcast or even us internally, we can help you build for that design and scale. When you're hitting cricket, our friends in the US will be looking at NFL, NHL, and they've got the numbers. But when you hit cricket, you're talking some serious numbers. And it's nice that, I love it that you've taken cricket. I love it that you've found that space. And I love it that they started in the US too, that World Cup. But for us, I think cricket is right on the cusp of just making it as another sport. So I love it that Stars sort of leading the way of taking a sport like that. And it's a different strategy. You're not going to go in and, again, I like how you said you find your white space. You're not going to go in and get a Premier League. Without doubt, the biggest global sport. But are you going to go in and bid for that? It's a different strategy. Yeah. And you look at Netflix's strategy, you could say Netflix are doing very well in sport, but what have they shown live?
Yeah.
They're leaning into sport in a completely different way. We all know the ripple effect that the F1 Drive to Survive has had. You've got NASCAR and stuff like this, but find your niche, find your space, and do it well. And make sure you're scaling for that. Make sure it works. There's nothing worse than user experience. It doesn't work.
And you just touched a fantastic point, because I'm going to ask, in fact, Olympic channels, Jorge, because we're talking about live sports. People know the Olympic Games that happen every 4 years, but you have so much more. It's not just live. is everything around it. Can you tell the audience everything you do apart from the Olympic Games and all the content around it?
Sure. Thanks for the question, because actually I mentioned before, and it's a concept might not be understood, but our word flame to flame means when the flame goes off until it goes up again. It's a lag of 4 years in summer and in winter. So every 2 years you have Olympic Games. But what do we do in the meantime? That was kind of the motivation of bringing up a digital platform to engage the user, to sign up users so that they get concurrently engaged with the Olympic Games. And that content creation is not easy. And we have produced a massive amount of content, short, mid, and long, which maybe on our side, our platform has not been so popular. But recently, with that Netflix and other platforms development, 1.5 years ago, we published one on Netflix, The Redeem Team. Encourage everybody to watch, and there is much more to come. So although we continue producing for our own platform, for YouTube, for other type of platforms, indeed, the visibility that Netflix or other type of this platform gives you, in the end, is your partnership. It's not really your competition.
And we spoke a lot about that, partnerships, bundlings. And again, another reason I think you mentioned for success, Maas, was the partners you have. Now you're partly owned by Etisalat. That doesn't mean he's the only partner. You can work with anyone you want, STC with anyone. So going back to the point of partnerships, bundling, how important is that even for sports as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Maria. It's partnerships with telcos and device manufacturers has been a core part of our success over the years, and it'll continue to be that way. Saudi Telecom, Etisalat, and Ooredoo, these three groups have been strategic partners for us for 10 years, and I hope they continue to stay this way for next 10 years. I think on sports, the other thing we are learning, besides the concurrency and besides the delivering the stability experience, I think when it came to SVOD for entertainment, it was a rather simple emulation, because you had a global leader, Netflix, and you looked at their UI and you said, okay, what can we learn from them? And we adopted it. But I think with sports streaming, that experience and that UI finesse is still evolving. And so you see a lot of variability in terms of what a consumer wants for a cricket UI versus what they want for UFC. And that's the effort we're putting in right now, because we recently acquired UFC rights. And we're getting feedback from our customers when they're watching UFC, feedback around the UI, the rewind, the forwards, the highlights, things that we weren't getting back on cricket. So what we realize, each sport has its own unique interactivity and consumer needs, which I think at least we didn't appreciate previously. Perhaps maybe the industry didn't appreciate. Certainly we didn't get it. And we're now addressing that. And we see that a lot, especially as we go more and more into UFC events. We see that need to improve our UI.
And going back to UFC events, and again, the importance of local content.
Correct.
We speak a lot about TV series and movies with local content, but in the world of sports, this is even more important, because people think about big global celebrities, but you have your own local stars. So sometimes focusing on that local flavor, the local celebrities or people here is important. And then, as I said, all the non-live content. So, for example, unscripted. What are you doing in the sports unscripted that has that local flavor? I think you mentioned a very interesting show before.
Sure. So I think our view has always been that licensing sports rights and streaming it to the audience is perhaps part of the story, but we've always pushed back on the leagues and said, they also need to take responsibility of making their sports locally more relevant. So for example, one of the reasons we liked the Italian league is because it's one of the leagues that takes the highest number of players from this part of the world. They go through Dutch League to the Italian League, and that's why we have the Dutch League on our service as well. But what we are doing with Italian League now is we're producing a reality show. We just finished the production on it, where we went out to 6 countries in the region, recruited 28 under 18 talent, best of the best from each country, including Egypt, Morocco, Saudi, UAE, brought them back to Abu Dhabi and created a reality series, with the prize being that the best of the best, the best talent gets a guaranteed contract in the Italian league. And the winner of this competition actually has a contract with AC Milan to play.
Which he did, this guy did. I don't know if I'm breaking already the...
You cannot.
Okay, I cannot tell the secret, so
please.
don't record this thing, please.
Sorry.
But,
that's
okay, I lied. I don't know what may happen. Maybe someone wins, maybe not. Let's see.
But yes, obviously
but it's a
someone
great
wins.
idea.
But who it is, you cannot disclose.
Okay, a person wins. But this is very good, Maas,
A
because...
person from this region wins a
Yes.
contract for AC Milan.
From Middle East, we don't know from which country.
Yes.
Great. I don't think I said it neither.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Thank you.
But this is very good because you create loyalty, you create engagement, local flavor, stickiness to your product. It's not only the live sports, it's also the flavor, which a bit is what Jorge was saying as well, how he's listening to the fans, launching new sports. Now you are saying India is a big country for you. It will become even bigger once you have the cricket. But you told me something interesting about Buenos Aires, that after the Summer Olympics there, you launched something called breaking, that I didn't know what it was, and it's break dance.
Yes, indeed. The B-boys and the B-girls are the break dance, or breaking is how the sport is called. That sport was firstly introduced in the Youth Olympic Games program in Buenos Aires, 2018, and then became, along with the skateboarding and other urban sports, new to the Olympics already by Tokyo. And it is going to continue now for Paris and normally for LA. So that is a bit more niche, but is where the young people are. The young people like BMX freestyle, they like sports climbing, they like breaking, skateboarding, and like surfing and others made ever first to the Olympics. This is also how you build content.
This is fantastic. Listening to our new audiences, how to attract the young eyeballs again into this space. So this is great. And I was wondering which role for fan engagement AI will play. Again, I had a slide mentioning AWS before I knew you were coming, Dave. But there is a lot AI is already doing in the world of sports, fan engagement, statistics. I think, Maas, what you were telling me before, cricket game can last 8-9 hours. Every second matters.
Days. Can last days.
But some of the games, like every second matters, and there's an opportunity from an advert, and there's an opportunity for excitement.
Everyone talks engagement, and everyone wants to hit engagement. Why do you want engagement? Eyeballs, money, sort of thing. But there's so many ways that sports leagues or federations or teams are using AI. You look at F1. So we take 1.1 million telemetry data points per second from the car, from the track, and from the driver, feed it back to the pit, and then that's where we create the stats and stuff. But that's an engagement of stats. What's going on with the car? What's going on with pit strategy, the fuel, the overtakes, the things like this. But there's, you mentioned youth audiences. One that was recent was it was Big City Greens with NHL, which is a hockey, and then there was the NFL that did the Toy Story. And they're using either a physical wearable tracker, or they're using machine learning with CV, like computer vision. And they're rendering live characters during a game. And that's because they want youth to look at it. So they did it as a bit of a gimmick, so to speak, sort of thing. But then they realized the engagement. I think on the NFL one, it was tween girls, where they had an absolute large uptake of young girls watching it, which they didn't know or predict. So that's using ML to just create another engagement avenue and stuff. But if you look at, let's say, Shahid, who has the Saudi Pro League, and they look at, I think it's called Frege. Is it Frege, the animated series that you have? That's the original. Let's say they're rendering live a Saudi Pro League game with their original content characters. Yes, it's maybe a gimmick, but it's just a different engagement avenue of way to look at it and stuff like that. But all that has to be backed by CV, which is machine learning, or data analytics, machine learning as well.
Yeah.
But it brings up an interesting point, even on the Formula One. This is all traditionally data that was after the event, right? And you talked about fan engagement. So whether it's Formula One having that in-car experience as a second screen, or for viewers that can connect with that, or you're doing different rendering to appeal to children. I think it's really the shift, and I think we've only seen it maybe in the past 12 months, but there's an opportunity moving forward there to really start using data in real time to create these differentiated experiences. And we're starting to see it play out, but I think we'll continue to see it play out more so over the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of real time, if we look at like Bundesliga, which uses, again, computer vision, there's 14 angles of tracking and stuff. When they're putting sort of predictive scoring or X goals and things like they call it, if you kick the ball within, I think it's like 200 milliseconds, it's not even reached the goal. They're predicting if that's a goal or not. So you're getting very, very close on real-time sort of predictive analytics to engage a fan of a complexity. And it's to tell a story, basically, of what is or is possibly going to happen.
And super important, I assume, in the Olympic Games, where there are so many different sports taking place in so many different places as well. How do you see the role of AI at the Olympic Games, Jorge?
It's a bit controversial still its use. Mainly, I would say no. I mean, I confirm due to the athletes and their biometry. But so far, there is a great use already in the past Olympics and overall for content creation to help create those highlights and moments and for different type of outputs for platforms. So yes, indeed, with so many sports, so many moments, so many events to cover for creating moments later on, AI is being used to help the publishers in the end, the broadcasters and media publishers to be able to output as much as they can.
And going to that and how to monetize sports, Maas, you are doing really well in the SVOD window. You have 3 million subs, but we see spikes. Like, for example, when the cricket happens, what happened when there is no cricket? Do people churn? Like we know with Shahid, they have spikes, and then after Ramadan, many people leave. How can you avoid churn? And then how much content do you think should be in the free window? Because you also launch, I would like to know what you have been launching in the last 12 months in free and pay. But how can you cope with churn if you are focusing so much in big events?
Yeah. Look, when we first started in sports, our mantra was you come for sports and you stay for entertainment. It didn't actually work out that way. And what we realized is that people who come for sports, they're a very different audience than, watching a show like Frasier or Community or Ertugrul. They just came for cricket or they came for football and that's it. And it's very difficult to engage them on entertainment. And we're trying to crack that code, but it's not that simple. So for sports, the engagement on entertainment for us didn't work out the way we wanted. But what did work out is the cost of acquisition of a sports customer is far less because I don't have to advertise Pakistan versus India. There's 7-8 million people dying to watch that match. And all they do is they search. So all we have to do is make sure SEO and SEM work. And we're there in the method of payment on the platform that they want to consume content. So what you spend on those high CPMs trying to acquire customers on SVOD, you save on the sports side. So your cost of acquisition is extremely low. So this is where you try to make the business case. Even if these customers do churn after a spike, we still have a better net lifetime value because the cost of acquisition upfront was extremely low for that customer. Having said that, what we are trying to do, to your point, Maria, is we're trying to make our free VOD proposition and fast proposition stronger. So even if these customers churn, let's say they were watching IPL and World Cup is 3 months away and they churn, and then in those 3 months, we try to engage them for free on our AVOD content. And what we are doing is experimenting with free sports as well. So whether it's the women's IPL for cricket or the Cricket World Cup, Women's Cricket World Cup, we've been making it available for free on our FAST channels. So that seems to work well. People do engage with that.
Women in sports are a very hot topic, so I'm glad you're also investing there. Do you see big numbers coming?
I have to admit, we were quite surprised with the popularity of women's cricket. And we made it available for free. The quality was extremely good. And the engagement and viewership on that was very high, actually.
Which is another strategy behind FAST, to put content for free and maybe not generate, because you saw my numbers very low. I don't know if you agree with the numbers at the moment, but low in advertising. Michelle was saying CPMs are very low. People agree, some people disagree.
Well, they are low if you're an advertiser, but they're low if you're a publisher. But when you go to advertise, the same low, you don't see it because you end up paying a lot more to acquire those paying customers. So I do tend to agree with Michelle and the reality of CPMs in this part of the world. But where we found opportunity is perhaps what we call product placements, product integration, and sponsorships. So we were fortunate, for example, to get Saudi Telecom as a season sponsor for Italian League. That means the studio is integrated and their brands constantly promoted, versus selling programmatic inventory on GAM.
Because I think you mentioned also branded content. How?
Right. Branded content has been extremely successful for us on reality shows. For $1 Million Listing, we had real estate developers that were sponsors for the Italian reality show Italian Dream. We have Puma and a health brand that's a sponsor. So that's where we find opportunity, perhaps.
Time flies, so these people are fantastic. Who has a question about sports that our friends here can help you answer? Any questions you have in mind about sports? Or any question that you want to ask each other in the panel?
I just want to know, come train with me.
I was going to say, Dave was talking about using AI to increase the popularity of sports. But I think if you look at NFL, what Taylor Swift has done for NFL's popularity, nothing like that has ever happened before.
It's the same as Ryan Reynolds. We all love the Wrexham story.
Yeah.
You watch the Wrexham documentary, you want them to win. I'm a diehard Leeds fan. I couldn't really care about Wrexham, but you watch it and you just engage with it. And that would not have happened without Swifties in there or the Ryan Reynolds are in there. And it's a different way of pulling fans in.
And it's also going back a bit of the role of social media. How can you use social media to attract eyeballs to advertise your content? Because we saw our YouTube and TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, look at Messi. When Messi went to Miami, and then the number of Miami sort of engagements or likes or followers on their social media, that wasn't because of Miami. It was just, how can we use our influencers, not necessarily sports people, to increase our brand? We're using their brand to increase our brand. And that's a sensible move.
Which is going back again, collaboration between all of you, all the players in this region. How can we improve that going forward? And how can we make FAST to go from something so tiny of 7 million to multiply?
I think one opportunity that you're beginning to see the winds of change in North America and Western Europe. You see collaboration, single sign-on collaboration between multiple SVOD services, right? Disney and HBO, Disney and Comcast, the Showtime Comcast Sky collaboration in Western Europe, right? So although that's even exchanging content, not just single sign-on.
Reduce that friction. Question?
Yes, one question from the audience.
We're seeing, particularly in the US, a lot of the sports teams and some of the sports leagues and associations starting up their own services in terms of distribution. How do you think that is going to impact the traditional space?
I think it's definitely happening in North America. Here it's slightly different. You had UFC Arabia, which was a standalone app. and now we're the exclusive license holders, and UFC Arabia was shut down about a month ago. So I think it's a matter of can this scale globally? Of course, the NBA League Pass, for example, is available here and continues to be available. So I think it'll depend on it varies by sport and also by territory.
And what do you, Jorge, you want to comment on that? About, because you have also your own, you have partnerships, you also have your own apps for the Olympic channels. Here in the region, I think you are partnering with beIN Sports, or?
Yeah, the rights holder here in the region is beIN Sports. I think the ecosystem needs to survive, cannot cannibalize one each other. But the Maas example right now means that all the efforts that you put in, maybe it's a cycle. They put efforts to raise the value of those rights in a region, and then when someone realizes they can make more money with it, on everyone, they'd say, okay, now it's time for them to do it, not for us. So it's also what we will. With India or with Brazil, with regions in the world that in generally certain sports or the Olympics events are not sold enough, or like in other regions. This is what we also try to do in the end, to elevate the value of those rights, because there will be people in the end that will be, interested of spending some money on that, on the eyeballs, and etc.
And something we didn't touch before, but I think affects. There is more questions. Please put your hands up. But another important. Tom has one there. Okay, Tom.
We've talked a lot about, so streaming problems seem to be largely solved. Billing's a really interesting one to discuss, but that I would assume will at some point get solved. But you guys haven't really talked about the value of fan data and fan engagement platforms directly. So how does that play into your strategies?
Look, I think the fan data, it's one of the things we're doing is complementing the core product with fantasy sports. So for example, with Serie A, when we acquired the Serie A rights, we also acquired rights for fantasy sports for the Italian league, and that's one way for us to collect that fan data. And we're working on enhancing the interactivity and the viewing experience during the live matches in the app or on the big screen to engage more with the customer. And to be honest, we're not doing enough there yet. The focus has been on streaming quality and stability, and making sure when trying to charge their credit cards 2 minutes before the match, we can handle that. But now we're getting to that stage where we're enhancing the experience and bringing some more interactivity, whether it's allowing fans to interact with each other while they watch the match within the platform, within the app, or it's going into those virtual experience rooms together. So we're bringing in a few features, but it's on our roadmap, and the idea is to bring that engagement and increase that awareness with each subscriber. But fantasy sports we are doing.
And then you can do e-commerce, shopping, so you can buy the content.
Gradually take over the world.
Exactly. More questions from the... look, there is a question there. Oh, yes, please. Let's answer. Jorge will answer.
Just very quickly, personal opinion and what I have seen since 2016 up to now is that a user or a fan database by itself, the value is even negative, not zero. So is the data that the fan share with you or that you can collect that enriches that. So a database with X million of users doesn't give zero value. You need to know how to segment, what to target, because otherwise, for me, the lifetime value of that fan is very short and it's going to fall down. Like an example again is the Olympic Games. Everybody who will sign up during the games for XYZ experiences, after the games is going to die if we don't do enough to know who that person is and what to offer the next day.
Yeah, if you're not even creating sort of basic personas and segmentation, there's no real context into that data, it's just a waste of time. You're just going to frustrate the fan more and switch them off more. But you can't measure what you can't see. You need to make sure you're tracking your fans, your sign-ups on any piece of data you want. Give it some context, and just even at basic level, segment it, persona it. Give this group a certain bit of replays or a certain bit on fans or teams. It's not tough, but just some basic level of personalization gets a different level of engagement and stuff. And if you want to go really hyper personalized, you can get that data, but just make sure you get the context and you're matching it right, because it'll have a negative effect. But you absolutely have to do customer 360 stuff.
We have 5 minutes. I saw another question from the audience. Yes, please.
Peter, Maas, you mentioned the trend of the single sign-on in America and in the Western part of Europe. But my understanding is not just single sign-on, but it's also a commercial bundling of these services. Mm-hmm. Do you see an opportunity here in the region to bundle STARZPLAY, Shahid, USM, and any other local services to a single commercial bundle to compete with the global players?
Look, I think from a consumer's point of view, I see the value proposition, especially, the region as well as I do. And especially in this part of the world, the audience has a vast range of interests. And so a cricket fan could also want to watch Mandalorian, and I don't have Mandalorian, right? So it would make sense to give that cricket fan Mandalorian as well. Does it always work out that way between all the businesses and all the priorities? That's the challenging part. But from a consumer from a consumer point of view, it makes absolute sense, especially in our part of the world, given the range of audience and their interests.
But this is what pay TV operators are doing in the region. Like they aggregate your content, the Mandalorian from Disney content, and that's why pay TV here is still growing.
Correct.
Because they're acting as aggregators.
Yeah. Well, this was the reason why Comcast was so successful at what it did in the 70s and 80s, because on one box, you got all the content you wanted. You didn't have to go to, different apps.
Comcast.
Well, I think we're saying, what Peter's saying, you're saying, we're deconstructing the bundle. Now we're bringing it back, which also allows you to mitigate churn behaviors too.
Exactly.
Whereas in isolation, there's maybe more an appetite for consumer churn, but the value of a bundle and the content they're getting from that, you have more loyalty in that. It's just whether the economics can work out from a discounting and everything about it.
And it's who will be the aggregators. It is true that consumers want aggregation. They want to see cricket, the Mandalorian and others. But who will be the aggregators? Will be hardware companies, will be telcos, will be even between you streaming video services joining forces, like it is happening as well. So that's a very good question. Aggregation, bundling. And you see weird things happening now. Companies that they may be seen as enemies now joining forces together. Because yes, consumers want to watch all, and if it's in one place, better.
And I was going to say, and not have to remember 3 different user IDs and passwords every time they want to watch a show.
But it's not necessarily bundled, but if you look at Sky UK and Q and stuff, it's phenomenal. I literally open my Sky Q box and I don't leave that box. So I don't technically leave the Sky platform, so to speak. They've just aggregated them all on. I go on my Netflix, I go on whatever else I want to go on, but I'm on my Sky Q box. So they're keeping me there within their platform. And it's rather than fight it, how do I embrace that user but keep them within my sort of ecosystem? And they're doing a good job of things like that.
Yeah, they have their own smart TV, Sky Glass as well. Again, another success of the Comcast family there.
Well, it's the holy grail if you can be that super aggregator.
Yes.
But then also you can it allows you for a more differentiated experiences, because you're not having to back out and sign into a new app, new app. Yeah. That's the value of what you see.
It's seamless. One remote, one box, one tele or what.
But all things are coming back in a new way. Everyone wants aggregation, everyone wants bundling, everyone wants free content in a linear way. Linear TV was never dead. That's why we're talking about fast. That's why Disney are launching always on channels, having content for you in a linear way. So the old concepts are coming back. It's just in a different way, using a lot of AI, using a lot of machine learning. But I think we have 1 minute. Any other question from the audience? Yes.
We're talking about sports. Are you including esports as a subcategory of sports, or it's a completely different beast?
Esports. Who wants to discuss about esports?
It's been since it was going to be 2020, well, 2021, first Olympic virtual series, first engagement with I think it was still the ESL or similar. I think it was 5 disciplines, Olympic virtual series. Last year, 2023, Olympic Esports Week with another 5 sports, and there's more coming. I cannot tell more, but
Tell us more. Give us a headline.
the thing is, it's not anymore called virtual sport or esports. I think something new will be coming up that will continue bringing in the youth interest into, again, world of sports, because there are more or less interactive video games, but in the end, it's sport.
Fantastic. You touched one of my slides, video games, the world of gaming, youth, video, content, and how bundling can include gaming as well. Netflix is doing it as well. Most operators are.
We've, I would say, entered into fantasy sports. We're not monetizing it as a standalone product yet, although we have some ads on it, but it's not really where the value is. Where we see the value is people who are watching Italian League on the platform can now not bet, but predict scores and have a leaderboard. And then the winner can redeem stars coins and gifts, awards. So that fan engagement is working well for us. Again, as a standalone, it's not a platform we see as an engine for monetization, but as a complementary product to our core streaming, it works. We also have, in addition to Italian League, we carry all the local UAE leagues and all the local clubs. And so people are engaging with the local clubs and local leagues, fantasy sports and leaderboards as much as Italian League. So that we find quite encouraging.
Fantastic. And suddenly the time disappears, but you will see them during the drinks. But to close the panel, can each of you give a sentence about something you are really excited about going forward, or something that is worrying you? I mean, we didn't speak about piracy, but we don't need to speak about negatives. So you can say, what is something exciting for you in the next 12 months?
Look, I think we've no panel is complete without AI commentary, right? So we're quite excited about AI's potential on in our industry. I think beyond subtitling and dubbing, we're beginning to use AI technologies across every business function now. So we're quite excited about that.
Fantastic. AI is making you excited. For apart from the 26th of July, I'm super excited.
I think yes, it's a big challenge for us in the Olympic world, again, for all the broadcasters, but media in general. I think we've come along the non-Mayol pandemic, and having started 4 years before the pandemic and now 4 years later, again, we started from zero. We grew a lot until Tokyo with the challenge that it was. And now this summer is going to, or even this year, because we also include Paralympics in the overall digital program, how to reach that, let's say, a stretch target that we have in terms of reach audiences and how we will beat up on them. That's our next big jump, let's say.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jorge. Peter?
Yeah, it's similar. I think it's how data is going to continue to evolve that consumer experience, the engagement. fan loyalty, fantasy sports, how it all, I mean, you really have to have a strong, like the AI data is going to underpin that experience. But I think we still, over the next, several years, how that consumer experience really transforms in the apps that we all see and love today to what that next generation experience is going to be, to bring in second screen experiences to use that data.
Fantastic. Dave?
I'm excited that your top 3 streaming were built on AWS. But I'm excited that you want to get into ML, but I'm kind of excited for things like STARZPLAY and Shahid, who were born in AWS, but they're innovating in this region, and people say this region is behind. Someone said 5 years and then another 10 from US. I'm not sure it's 10 from US, but I love that there's growth from a homeborn or homegrown company out here like Stars, who are dipping into sports, and the same with Shahid. And for us, it's great that you built on us, and I'm excited for that, but I'm just excited to see where they go as local companies, and we start talking to them on more of a global platform and a global scale. It's not, oh, here's the Middle East, here's EMEA, here's US. No, here's Stars and Shahid. Let's talk about them globally. So I'm glad that this region's sort of beginning to get the attention it deserves, really.
Fantastic, and thank you to the team of Comcast Technologies for bringing this event together. It was really, really amazing. I learned myself a lot, things I didn't know at all. I didn't know what was happening between the Olympics, so thank you. So fantastic insights. You will be able to speak to them later. A round of applause for all of them and for you as well for being here today. Thank you.